Hey guys, what's up? How's it going? Hope you are good. Today's video is going to be a review of the Poco X3 NFC Shiny. I have been using this phone for about 3 weeks now. I've done 2 other videos on it. I did a gaming review and a camera review. Now we're gonna just do the general review of this phone, whether I'm gonna be using it as my main phone or not. That is pretty much why I bought it. But now I'm ready to do the full review now that I've used it quite a lot. So let's just go into some specs and see what we are dealing with here. The Poco X3 NFC. Woo! This is a pretty cheap phone, around about $300, same in pounds, maybe slightly more expensive depending where you get it from. It features a 6.6-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080 by 2400 pixels. It has a pixel density of 395 ppi. It's protected with Gorilla Glass 5 and it has 450 nits of brightness. It's powered by a Snapdragon 732G processor, which is a new processor designed to boost mid-range phones to allow them to play quite advanced games at the highest settings. The main cameras are a 64 megapixel sensor, a 13 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, 2 megapixel macro sensor and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. It has a single forward-facing selfie camera which has 20 megapixel resolution. It can shoot 4K video at 30 frames per second as well as 1080p at 30 to 120 frames per second. It can also shoot 720p video at 960 frames per second. It features Bluetooth, GPS, NFC, it has an infrared port, it has a microphone jack, which is something that I am very pleased with. I do not like phones without a microphone like this. I love it. But is it worth buying? Is it good? I think it's really good value for money, guys. Like, honestly, it's one of the best value for money phones I've ever used. Is it the best phone in the world? No. But for the price, I think it's outstanding. Now, what makes it outstanding is essentially 3 features. One, the screen with its 120 Hz refresh rate. The 120 Hz refresh rate allows you to have super smooth scrolling in between menus when looking at web pages, when looking at screens, when looking at your apps. Everything moves really smoothly on the screen. Also, when playing some games that have 120 Hz option, it means everything on the game is super smooth. You can tell the difference. Does it work on every game? No, it depends what game you play. Some of them have the option, some of them don't. But even so, the phone also features a 240 Hz ultra high touch sampling rate, which basically allows you to have instant feedback from when you touch your phone. It means it responds quicker. Now that works with any game. Also, the powerful Snapdragon processor. It is a new processor. It allows your phone to play pretty much every game at pretty much roughly the highest settings. Pretty much every game I've tried has allowed me to select the highest quality settings. I haven't once had any stuttering, any lag. I can turn anti-aliasing on to the highest setting. I can turn every graphic setting in every game that I've tried to the top, and it doesn't really affect it. It plays everything super smoothly. And finally, the cameras. The cameras on this thing, again, not the best, but the fact that there are 5 of them, the fact that you have an ultra wide and a depth sensor and a 64 megapixel main sensor is pretty extraordinary, again, for a phone of this price. It's not going to beat a Samsung or an iPhone 10 or anything that's, you know, twice the price of this phone, but it does a good job. I tested the cameras quite heavily. I think the color profile, the color processing is really good. It creates very vivid images. With that 64 megapixel sensor, you can zoom right in and retain a lot of details. There are a few features missing. It doesn't have great stabilization for moving video. It can't shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, which would have been nice. But again, this is a cheap phone, guys. It is not an expensive phone. We're getting a lot of features for the price. That is basically my take from this phone, is that it is super good value. Personally, for me, the phone is a little bit on the large side. I prefer slightly smaller phones. It's also on the thick side, so the cameras stick out slightly from the body of the phone, so it does feel quite weighty and quite obvious if you're wearing particularly tight jeans or something like that. It is going to be noticeable. The design of the phone is pretty sweet. I love this back display. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it here actually, but it has the branding Poco, which kind of changes color as you move it. I think it looks pretty modern. It looks more expensive than it is. It's not quite edge to edge, but it's not that far off. I've seen many more expensive phones that have a much bigger black border, like the iPhone. It has basically no notch. It just has the tiny little selfie camera here, the only thing interrupting the screen. So all in all, I have very little to complain about with this phone. The IPS LCD display, not the best when it comes to vibrant colors. If you want an amazing screen, you're gonna have to spend more and get an AMOLED display. It's probably its weakest point, but for me, it's never been a big deal. Other things that impress me about this phone is the quality of the audio. I mean, it has very impressive speakers if you like to play your games or movies. You can pretty much hear it from across a room very clearly. It features a USB-C port. It also features NFC, which for a phone of this price, again, is also pretty impressive. You can use it for payments. You can use it for anything that any NFC phone can do. At the same time I bought the Poco, I also bought the OnePlus Nord, and I was basically going to decide between which of these I prefer. I'm going to do a comparison between these two phones in my next video, so stay tuned. And the differences, well, you'll find out in my next video, but I'm still not sure which one I'm going to pick. I'm also pretty impressed with the battery life on the phone. I mean, it's lasted me a couple of days when I've not used it too much. It's definitely better than my last phone. It features a pretty large battery in this device. Obviously, if you're gaming with it, if you are using it to watch a lot of movies and a lot of videos, then you are gonna wear that battery down. But for a smartphone of 2020, it's doing a pretty good job. Let's face it, no smartphone lasts that long these days. So as you can tell, I really like the Poco X3 NFC. I guess the last thing to consider is the operating system. This is where things take a little bit of a downward slide. I basically have never liked MIUI. At the moment we're at MIUI 12, which to be honest is an improvement on the last versions. The reason I didn't like it is because sometimes, depending on what app you use, there can be little ads put into the operating system, which I am completely against. I don't think Android or any operating system should have any kind of advertising. We see enough adverts every day. We don't need to do that. The only time I've seen ads on the Poco, there's a piece of software which, when you download an app, scans it to see if it's got any viruses, and then it says it's fine, and it shows you a little ad. That's the only time I've ever seen ads on the Poco, and guess what? You can just disable that. You don't need to have that. It is pretty useless. So I'm not too worried about it, and it is pretty easy to disable. In the last version, there was no app tray, so you couldn't do this and see your list of apps, and now they brought that back, and it actually organizes things really well automatically into different categories. It's not the best operating system in the world. It's not the cleanest. There are some things that I don't like, but you get over it. It has gestures, which is what I like to see in a phone. So yeah, that's basically fine. Is it the best operating system? No, but for me, it's got better since the last version, so I can deal with it. So yeah, guys, I guess that's it. That is my review of the Poco X3 NFC. I think it is such a good value for money phone. There are lots of fairly cheap and also good value for money phones out there, especially from the Chinese companies like Realme, like obviously other Xiaomi phones, Redmi, that brand. So there are a lot to choose from. I just think this one in particular is really good for the size of the phone. It's got NFC, it's got the powerful processor, 5 cameras. The downsides, the average operating system, it's not fully waterproof, and I guess that's it, to be honest. Yeah, that's basically it. So for me, I am super impressed with the Poco X3 NFC. I'm not just saying that, I really have tested this phone quite a lot. But I fully recommend this phone if you're looking for a good value phone that punches way above its weight as far as I'm concerned, especially if you're into gaming. This is going to be a great gaming device. So that's it, guys. I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions on the Poco X3 NFC, then please comment below and I will get back to you. I'll probably do a couple more videos comparing this to some other phones. Like I said, I have an iPhone, I have the OnePlus Nord, so I'll be doing some more comparisons with this phone and some other phones in the near future. I've also got some more smartwatches coming, some basically more tech in general, so feel free to subscribe if you're into that. It is completely free and I will be here entertain you at the moment. And hopefully entertain you. You can also follow me on Instagram and yeah, check that out. But apart from that, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I will see you next time. Bye.